Stephen Biko said that the most dangerous weapon in the hand of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. So the Nation of Islam, that's what it did in America, go after changing the mentality of the people. And we African, we have a lot of work to do with mentality. It don't make no sense that tiny countries of Europe go and colonize huge land of Africa. So I welcome Mr. Akbar Mohammed, and I'm grateful for him being here.
First, I'd like to begin in the name of God, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. We thank Allah for all of His servants and His messengers. First, I want to say to Brother Leo, who organized this meeting, and he's been working. You know, I was in Ghana with his brothers, and when you work and organize, and you have an example in Brian Becker, you know that you run into things, and people may not respond the way you want to. You've been in this room 2 times, and you've had a crowd similar to this, and I know how much work you put in it. I want to just start there. But building consciousness is an uphill struggle, and you have to be persistent. You can't give up. Some people become battle fatigued. They get worn out. I've been doing this for 52 years of my life, and God knows that many times you want to throw your hands up and quit, but the need of your people and what you struggle for is so great. Minister Farrakhan, 57 years. He was 22 years old when he became a follower in the Nation of Islam. And his struggle was to bring consciousness to our people, not just to make them Muslims join the Nation of Islam, but wake them up. And I want to say this on behalf of Brother Leo, because people who build conscious movements, we're not like and I don't want to talk about some of my brothers I know well, but we got brothers in universities and colleges say my honorarium is 5,000 plus transportation and a hotel room at a certain level, and then I can come and talk to your people. In the grassroots conscious building movement, we don't say that. The brother didn't call me and I said, brother, I can come and speak at this lecture, but what I need is $3,000 plus my airline ticket, my meal and transportation from the airport. He said, well, we don't have that. I'm sorry, brother. I got another engagement. See? But that's what the level that we move. This is the insidious nature of capitalism.
I'm organizing to bring consciousness about what's going on in the Ivory Coast, and I want you to explain how Answer Coalition can help with that struggle. You see, I'm having a hard time mobilizing, but I'm still going to keep trying. But what can you tell to my audience or to my Americans here about that situation in Ivory Coast, and how can you help us?
Well, I think that, I personally feel that there's the only way for the Ivory Coast struggle to get a broader audience now is to actually put it into a broader African perspective. Because of, and to make the connection, there's a lot of people don't realize, a lot of people in the United States, including people in the so-called peace community, anti-war community, not fully aware yet of the military orientation of the Pentagon towards Africa. You know, there was a big setback with the overthrow of the government in Ivory Coast. Whenever there's a big setback, it kind of leads to a diminution of energy. People feel like it's all over. You know, that's always what happens after that's natural. And so, you know, the frustration, people are feeling like, why aren't there more people? And that's kind of, that happens all the time. The question is then, how do we and you as a community go forward, given this is the political context? And I think that we have to do a lot of education so that people understand that the overthrow of Gbagbo and the trial is part of a bigger picture, and we have to connect it to Libya, we have to connect it to the rest of the Middle East, we have to connect it to what's going on throughout Africa. I think it can be done. It's going to be hard to do in the short term. I think the worst enemy that we would have is for us to be too frustrated and say, why haven't more people come? We shouldn't talk like that, because it's always the case until a movement takes off, that it's a small group of activists who keep doing the things over and over again. They say, well, how come there's not more people, not more money? And then suddenly there's a lot of people. And when there's a lot of people and a lot of excitement, there's a lot of resources flow into it. And suddenly it becomes a mass movement. And then afterwards you look back and you say, well, that was inevitable. But in the run-up to that inevitability, it just feels like, you know, we're confronted with apathy and frustration. So we want to keep working with you, Leo. We, like Akbar, really respect your tenacity and the tenacity of the other people. In the 2 other meetings I've been here, I know a lot of the same faces are here. This is the core group. And so we shouldn't feel too frustrated about ourselves because we're not big enough or strong enough yet, but just to value what we've done and what you've done and keep finding ways to bring up Ivory Coast in the larger picture of the colonization of Africa, because that is the thing that will draw a bigger audience as well. People do care about Africa, even if there's a profound ignorance outside the African community about Africa. People care, and I think the question is how to make people feel that they're making a difference.
But I'm saying this because I respect the brother's effort. I watched him work for the last meeting. He called me, I said, if I'm free, I'll come. Because he's trying to make people aware. There's a struggle on the African continent. And since the death of Muammar Gaddafi, look at what's happening. You may not read it, but being that my passion is Africa, I thank Minister Farrakhan. He sent me over there. He said, I want you to go to Africa and open some doors. I've been to 42 African countries, and I thank him because it's the greatest experience of my life. And then I developed this love and passion for Africa that doesn't exist in the Black American community. Right now, as we stand here, they're closing a conference out in South Africa. The African Union sponsored the conference. Africans in the diaspora and the African continent. How can we relate? The Caribbean and North America. We are well-trained ex-slaves, and some of us are still slaves, but we're well-trained. But how can we use the training that we learned in this modern Babylon to help Africa to move forward in its development? The first thing you got to do is know Africa. I can go in this street in Washington and talk to 100 people about just what Brian talked about, and he's not an African. They wouldn't have a clue of what's happening. I say name 5 African presidents. They wouldn't have a clue. The oil that they will be pulling out off the coast of Cote d'Ivoire in a few days. See, that's the big plan in the future, is the oil in Cote d'Ivoire. We cannot effectively get this oil if we got a man in power that won't play ball with us. So Bagbo gotta go. This is what you're faced with. But the problem that we have is image and how people see things, consciousness, you know, and it's a work that takes time. And you got to train a new generation. If everyone in this room say, I'm going to this meeting tonight for African Liberation Day, and I'm going to bring 5 people with me. I mean, that's what we do in the Nation of Islam. We don't open a mosque or a lecture and expect people just to show up, because the people are not thinking about consciousness. It took time. It was a sacrifice to get here tonight. But it's the struggle. It's about the struggle. Brian, I have respect for you, and I'm not praising you as just one of my white friends, but your tenacity of will, your fortitude, how you get out there and do it. When I see him out there and I'm looking at television and I see them out there doing and demonstrating against things in this society that hurt the masses of people, I take my hat off to him, because I know what it is to organize. It don't happen in a vacuum. It don't happen with a wish. But you got to be committed to it. And one thing I'm saying to my African brothers in here, whether you're from Cote d'Ivoire or whether you're from Burkina Faso or whether you're from Mali or Ghana or Nigeria, that you got to work on bringing black people to consciousness. They want to know about Africa, but they're a little embarrassed of how dumb they are about Africa. But they've been dumbed down by the American system that when they look at Africa, they see starving babies with flies all over. Now, they don't have to take that picture. They see AIDS as the problem. They show you a military coup, and look how they make the coups look. So when you think of Africa, you think of a continent that is problematic instead of a continent that has tremendous possibilities. Yes. A continent, we don't see it where we can train young boys and girls in school and say, here's where the future of the world is. Yes. A continent of nearly 1 million people, diverse, but it's rich enough to build Europe and America again, though Europe and America robbed it not only of its natural resources, but robbed it of its human resources in the millions that were brought in the holds of slaves.